everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 13 of Trigun. And last episode, things got really dark, and we learned a lot about Vash. Specifically that Vash has this other side to him, and that it comes out when a guy named Legato shows up. Legato Blue Summers, who is so mysterious, and who may be the same type of individual as Vash, whatever that means. There's also this assassin that's been charged with hunting down Vash, that Vash is like seemingly defeated, but we don't know what's going to be the aftermath of this. And poor Meryl and Millie are like, whoa, who are you? What's going on? Your arm is not an arm. What's happening? So we have a lot of ground to cover, I feel like, and I'm very curious. We're at the halfway point in the series. This is the halfway point. So what are we going to do? Like, are we going to have like a flashback episode? Are we going to have Meryl and Millie questioning Vash? Like, what's the deal? What are we going to get? Because things got really dark. Like, people died last episode, things were destroyed, and Meryl seemed to be a bit shaken by learning that Vash is not exactly... We've had hints the entire time that he's not the happy-go-lucky guy we think he is, but last episode definitely cemented it that no, Vash has a dark side. There's some history there. We've been having it previewed since literally like Lost July in episode 6. So what are we going to do now? So I'm really excited to see what's going to happen and if we're going to get any important information at this point in the story. We'll just have to wait and see. But I want to give a very special shout out real quick over to Patreon, to our patrons. This is our philanthropy tier. I'm very thankful for all of the subscribers and all of the people that support me on YouTube as well as Patreon. The people in the philanthropy tier, though, get a special shout out in my videos and get to break ties if we have them in the polls. And they do happen sometimes. I have literally been watching shows because of tiebreakers. So I'm very grateful for their support, as I am grateful for everyone's support on this channel. Y'all make me so excited to do what I love to do. So a special shout out to Edgar, to Dana, to Alex Cornejo, to Kiri, to Shimoyama, to Be Happy, to Nameless Monster, to Truck, to Natalia Zaharia, as well as Tyrone, to Anime Annie, to Sunspots, Translucent Men, to Eric, to Anna, and to Kuba Lutek. Thank you all so much. I'm so grateful for your support. All of my love. So yeah, I sat down, I got some tea poured. I'm so amped to hear this beautiful OP and see what we're gonna get. So with that in mind, we are gonna get ready to start this here out and just see what all we get, right? So we are gonna start Trigun, and we're gonna do episode 13. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do this. Huh. Man, I was very glad that I watched episode 13 and 14 together. I think that they work really well together. I think that 13 and 14, they kind of, you have the Vash side of it, but also Meryl. I think Meryl took center stage in both episodes 13 and 14, which I'm really happy about because I've always liked Meryl's character a lot. She comes across, I feel like if you first start watching the show, you might think she comes across as being naggy, but I'm also like, no, that's pretty standard for her character because it's sort of like she's the businesswoman. She's like I work for this insurance company. I'm a businesswoman. I got a job to do. And honestly, I think in real life, if your job was to go and find Vash the Stampede and follow him around, yes, you would be absolutely annoyed by him because of how ridiculous he can be. But throughout the course of this first half of the series, she's come to know Vash, realize that this guy's pretty complex. He's pretty layered. There's a lot more to him than just his goofiness. And in episode 12, it kind of comes out that no, he's got some past, some history that he's trying to bury and go away from, but he's got to meet up with whoever this man is to finish the past and let bygones be bygones, to burn the bridge and move forward. That's why he's after this guy. Now, is it Legato? I don't think it is. I think that Legato is like one rung of the ladder below the guy that it is, because we established in episode 12 that there was the assassin, there was Monave, who was the hired gun. Then he was working for Legato. Legato was working for this mysterious final boss person. And I think that the person above Legato is the one that Vash is looking for, right? Because here's the thing. One, if Vash, if Legato was the guy he was looking for, I feel like as big of a reaction as Vash had in the last episode in 12, his reaction would have been even bigger if it had been, I feel like Vash would have immediately came out guns blazing if he saw the person that he's looking for, right? But I don't think it's Legato. I think Legato's tied to them, but I don't think it's him. So I feel like we've got, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. We've got 12 episodes left. We've got a whole season left, right? We've basically got a mini season left of this series. I think Legato's going to be like the next to last boss. I feel like maybe we're going to focus on Legato next because we've got to face Legato before we face the final boss. Now, the question, of course, is Wolfwood going to show up during our battle with Legato and then go with Vash to the final boss? Or is Wolfwood going to stay out of this picture until we get to the final boss? That is the question. And I don't know the answer. I can see it going both ways. I can see Wolfwood showing up in the next couple of episodes as we move towards facing Legato. I could see him not showing up and then Vash facing Legato and then Wolfwood showing up with whoever the final boss is. I feel like it could be one of those two scenarios. I also found it really funny that we basically spent the recap going forwards mainly on episode 5, was like episodes 1 through 5 were mainly what we recapped. And then after that, we just like sped through the others. They weren't important, right? Because episode 6, Lost July, a lot of that was from Vash's perspective, so Meryl wasn't there to see what exactly was going on. And then the whole thing with the sand steamer, it was really mostly Vash's perspective. I mean, Millie and Meryl were there. And then everything with Wolfwood was kind of Vash's perspective too. And Wolfwood's not involved with the insurance company. That's not what she's supposed to be writing about, so it makes sense she didn't focus on it. So it really was a recap of episodes 1 through 5 to be like, remember this? Don't forget these characters. And the whole thing in episode 5 was revolving around the Nebraska family that get brought back up in episode 14. So I was like, okay, gotcha. So we had to bring up the Nebraska family to be a reference because it'd been a while, and now we're bringing back them up in episode 14. So again, episodes 13 and 14 go really good together. I'm glad I watched them together. So before we dive into episode 14... and its ridiculousness, I do want to talk about some notes from episodes 13. One is that the insurance company is in December. December is the same town, the city that's near where Wolfwood is from. So that's fascinating to me, that Wolfwood and Meryl and Millie are from the same location. That is interesting. I don't think it's been brought up anytime before this, so that's curious to know. And that this is basically, they started, episode 1 began technically 4 months ago, but also 3 months ago. So it's been like 3 or 4 months they've been following Vash around. Okay. And so they were assigned to go find him 4 months ago, but they didn't actually find him until 3 months ago. So basically it took them a month to get all their resources up, do research, go to wherever Vash was and find him. I think that's significant because Wolfwood, it would have taken him around the same time to get to that area too. Coincidence? Awfully interesting that they're from around the same location. Interesting. I'm curious if there's some kind of catalyst that started Wolfwood and Meryl and Millie on the trajectory to go towards where Vash was. If something happened in December around the same time, and that's what's like shot them forward to go looking after him. Don't know, right? Not sure. Not sure at all. Vash, the hired gun. So the hired gun didn't know anything except he'd been purchased by Legato and he knew nothing. But I love that line where he's like, I could shoot you in the back right now. And Vash is like, my hand's still on the trigger. Like, I've not let you go. I'm just saying this is your chance. I'm being good. I'm holding the gun so I don't kill you. Don't push your luck. It felt very, you know what it felt like? It felt like when Frieza in Dragon Ball Z, when Goku's like, I'm gonna let you go. And then Frieza's like, no! And like fires the thing at Goku. And Goku's like, I just got done telling you. And then, fights back. That's what it felt like. And so I was gonna be really curious to see if the assassin would do something to Vash, but no, he does not. He does not end up doing that. Meryl, I think this is really important too. I feel like there's a lot of little things in episode 13 that I don't like recap episodes. I usually do not watch recap episodes. I'm like, I'm watching this series. I don't need a recap. I've been spending hours discussing it. Why would I need to recap? But I feel like there's some very clever little things inserted throughout episode 13 that a lot of people might skip or just be like, oh, it's a recap episode, never mind, and not pay attention to, that I think are going to come up later. Like the whole thing with December and Wolfwood and Meryl and them being around the same area. I think that'll come back up again. I also think it's important to note that Meryl thinks it's okay to lie on the expenditure reports because she's trying to get a promotion, and she's like, it's okay to lie a little bit. Like, they're not going to know. It's not going to hurt anybody. I feel like that little tiny detail is going to be a big foreshadowing for whenever we get to the climax of this series and we get to like whatever the big bad final thing is. I feel like Meryl's going to have to submit a report, and she's going to tamper and alter a lot of it to make Vash okay at the end. I feel like that's what's going to happen. And then she's going to be like, what? It's all about that promotion. I feel like that's what's going to happen. I think that that's foreshadowing something later to come. We'll see. June-Pril, or Innipril. Innipril was the city we started out in. Innipril, I'm like, is that basically April? Is Innipril City April, and that's just a different way of saying it? It never dawned on me at the moment, but now that we have July, December, Innipril, I'm like, is that just a little play on words to be April, the city? I'm not sure. But they basically I like that they noted that everyone that has encountered Vash has regained a lost emotion. Like something that some part of them that's been missing, they gained it back by meeting Vash. I think that's really important. And I like that the series discusses that. I feel, again, like that's going to be something that comes up. Vash, along the way, he helps everyone he encounters regain a little part of themselves. But the symbolic irony is that as he helps them gain a little piece of themselves back, he loses a piece of himself in the process. And so there's that. But Meryl, the part with all the scars, there's like a chunk missing out of him, like all over. There's chunks, there's stitches. The one part that I found most fascinating, not the arm that's the gun, but over his heart is like a big chunk of his heart missing, and there's a metal cage like keeping it all together. I'm like, a cage over his heart. Like, and the thing about this interesting is that they talk about like his arms is replaced with guns. Meryl says, is this the price to pay for not killing? And my thing is, I think she's right. But what's funny is that ever since episode 1, Vash really hasn't suffered a lot of injuries. I mean, he's been cut in the head and like had some, he's scraped some bruises and cuts, but he's not like had chunks taken out of him, right? So we know that Vash is at least 20 so years. He's been traveling as a wanderer at least 20 or so years. So it leads us to believe that maybe he has, like, the first couple of years he had all this damage sustained to him, and then over time he's realized, okay, Vash, you've taken a lot of hits, let's play it safe now and not get as hurt as we have in the past. That could be it. The scars and the damage he's taken could be from battling Legato, battling other things, the whole thing with Lost July, the explosion and everything. We don't know a lot, but we know that Vash has been through quite a lot, and it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking to see him suffer so much. And the worst part was when he says, he's like, oh, well, a lady wouldn't want to see this. He's like, this isn't something girls want to see, that I'd want to show girls. They'd run away from me. And this whole time Vash has been flirting with all these girls, and suddenly it's apparent that that's all a front. He doesn't actually think any of them would get with him, and he doesn't want to show them that because he's like Phantom of the Opera-ing and being like, oh, if a girl saw me like this, they'd run away. And Meryl going, Millie didn't answer the question. Millie didn't say anything to that, but Meryl goes, no, they wouldn't. They wouldn't. Like the tenderness she said it, and the way that she just so gently said they wouldn't run away from you if they saw you like this, because her and Millie don't. I'm just like, no, ship's over. Like there's the BL part of my heart, like wants to ship Wolfwood and Vash. The BL side of my heart's like, yes, let's do that. But the romantic side of me is like, no, Meryl and Vash. I'm like, oh, it's over. I was like, give me all the Meryl and Vash. I'm like, the moment she was like, they wouldn't run from you. I was like, she will. Meryl's not running from you, Vash. Take her up on this. Quit flirting with the other girls. They're not important. Meryl's the one you should care about. I'm just my heart. I was like, yes, please. All of the things. And so then the thing about it is that Meryl, she ends up being like, no, we have to go with him. Now that we know about Vash being like this, we have to keep our mission. We have to do our... She's saying it's her duty, but I'm like, girl, come on. I love her pink suitcase. And then I love that Vash is trying to instantly flirt with the girl. And Meryl's not really jealous of it anymore because she's just like, it's all a front. Like, she knows the truth. I'm just... My heart in episode 13, like that cemented my Vash and Meryl ship. I'm like, okay, we're good now. I still love to ship Wolfwood and Vash because it's too fun not to, and they have too good chemistry. But I'm also like, nah, it's Meryl and Vash. I'm sold. I'm sold on the ship. Yes, please. So yeah. So let's talk about episode 14. Oh my God, this episode. I never thought we would see not only the Nebraska family back, but there being more of it, right? So the city that we are in Promontory. I'm going to look up what promontory, if that means anything. If promontory means anything. It says promontory is a high point of land or rock projecting into a body of water, a prominent mass overlooking or projecting into a lowland, or a bodily prominence. A raised mass over a body of water. Interesting. So, well, they bring up geoplants in this episode and talk about the geoplant, that it being there and being cultivated over the last 20 years seems like it's why that little oasis occurs. But if this town is like over an oasis, over a former body of water, that's interesting. The whole series so far makes it seem like this was once a really, really nice land with lots of like lush, fertile ground, and then something happened that made it a wasteland. And the plants, like the geoplants, the other plants, are the only thing bringing any part of that back, any of that sustainability back. But this couple finds like this mineral vein they talk about that's ran underground that has allowed them to cultivate the land above. And what's interesting is one of the plants is underground as well. So I'm like, did everything just sink underground and they forced the people to the surface, and it's like this underground cavern is this like big oasis? We don't know, right? But the fact that the couple found like the budding oasis 20 years ago, and that was around the time that the Lost July incident happened. That's around the time that supposedly this ancient technology is somewhat forgotten, is no coincidence, right? Everything here is lining up. 20 years ago, some stuff went down. Vash doesn't remember prior to that, but some stuff has happened. And that's interesting. So yeah, so Promontory is this town above an oasis. Okay. And so then we cut to Millie writing to her family. And so we have Millie, we have mom and dad. Then we have, what does she say here? My big sister, my middle sister, my little big sister. And then after that, she says, my big brother, my middle brother, my little big brother. Oh my God, Millie. Dougie, Henry, Rodney, Mickey, and little Sandra, like her 5 nieces and nephews. So there's like basically 8 family members and 5 nieces and nephews. Like there's like 13 people she's writing to. And so we see the difference between Millie and Meryl in this. And so Millie writes home every month, and they call them like the Millie Monthly, where she writes home to her family every month to tell them what's been going on. So she's been sending 3 or 4 letters at this point. And Meryl says that she started writing home to her family, but then she stopped. Now we don't know at this point, did Meryl's family live in December? Did they live far away? Was Meryl writing them back when she was in December at the insurance company? Or are we just talking about as they've been looking for Vash? But Meryl does not seem as close with her family, right? She doesn't seem as close. as obviously Millie is. And I think that has an impact on this episode because they deal with a family that is somewhat estranged. And Meryl kind of seems to struggle with, well, what do we do? She's like, because I think Meryl in some regards relates a little bit to Badwick, which also, why would you name your kid Badwick? You're just asking for them to be a villain. But I think she relates a little bit to Badwick because maybe she doesn't have the best relationship with her family and she doesn't feel the need to contact them because she doesn't think it'll make a difference. And so I think she kind of relates to Badwick throughout this. But the moral of the story is that in the end, Badwick's family does love him despite everything that's gone on, and they did keep him in mind and put him in on the deed at the very end, which, you know, kind of touches Badwick and gets him emotional. And I think maybe Meryl realizes that, one, not every family dynamic is the same. Not everybody is going to be as lovey-dovey family as Millie and her family are, but that Meryl, I think it justifies to Meryl that you're okay doing what you're doing because every family is going to have a different dynamic, right? And Vash, we don't even think he has any family left. So interesting, right? And she kind of just skirts around the question. Little Arcadia. Now, Arcadia, what does Arcadia mean? Arcadia means collecting the, what does it say? Arcadia is a modern unit. What does Arcadia mean? It's a utopia. A little utopia. Okay. So that's what the family has, this little utopia. And I think that's kind of funny because the episode shows that not everything's perfect. There is no such thing as a perfect utopia. Every family has issues. I mean, I'm sure Millie's family has issues. I'm sure at some point they do, right? But every family has issues. It's okay. There's no such thing as a perfect utopia, right? Everything's going to have some problems to it. So yeah, Vash. I like that Vash is like, Vash, you know, if you didn't wear a giant red coat and you weren't 7 feet tall, I don't think you'd stick out like a sore thumb like you do, right? But I love that the family are like hiding behind him as a shield. And then the son, Badwick, I like that he has like, the shirt he has on, the way that the straps are of it, the straps on the vest make him look like Vegeta. It makes him look like a Saiyan from Dragon Ball Z, which is absolutely hilarious because then, you know, then we have the sister of the Nebraska family and she looks like, you know, a character from Pokemon. But I like this now that Millie and Meryl know a little bit more about Vash and they know how extreme he can get. Now they're like, we don't really want to involve you, Vash, because you're going to make things worse. So we're going to get involved. And they do destroy a building, but it's not like the entire town level of destruction. So I'm curious if that's going to become something down the road where they try to keep Vash out of trouble and Vash is like, no, I have to be a part of this and it's going to lead to some tension. I don't know, but they're like, we need to keep the human typhoon in check, right? I like that we go to this coffee shop called Coffee Hours. And it's just like the most like open space coffee place in the world, but there's like all this bread and sandwiches, and Vash just looks enormous compared to all of them, other than Millie, who I love Millie's suspenders under her outfit. So they try to hire Vash as a bodyguard, but Meryl's like, no, out of the question. He just got done dealing with the last assassin. We don't want to attract any more trouble than we need to. So Meryl and Millie kind of get conned into being bodyguards. I love that she now calls him Broomhead, which is like a little bit more endearing term than, you know, baka or idiot. And I like that Meryl's like, look, we're just going to put this under the category of risk prevention. Meryl is not afraid to use legalese of the insurance company, of the Bernadelli insurance company, to mask the problems and make it work. I think that's absolutely hilarious. I was like, yes, please. Sure thing. That seemed to work out really great. But yeah, so we have this idea of the oasis, the little Arcadia, that's in this like horseshoe shape and stuff. It kind of is in a little circular area, like the bulb, like the light, and Vash starts to question, being like, is this where this is where a geoplant was? So there's stuff underground. I'm so fascinated. The thing about the world building is they just give us little crumbs. And Vash is very solemn in this moment. He's just kind of like, okay. Like just kind of soaking it all in, taking it all in, being like, what do we... Vash keeps things very close to the vest. and he doesn't want to talk about it, doesn't want to, admit too much, doesn't want to make things too obvious. But he does kind of point out, like, oh, well, this is happening. He keeps things close to the vest, but he's also like, I don't want to talk about it, but also in that vein, right? So I find his attitude really fascinating at this point here. But the fact that there can be land like this developed is interesting. I'm like, okay, what we gonna do? What we gonna do about this? So basically the family's problem is that this guy Morgan wants to get the deed and take the land and buy it from them. And they're like, we've spent 20 years of our lives cultivating this. We're not just going to give it up. So their goal is to get the deed to the bank to put it in storage because they don't think Morgan can get to it. Now, there is the obvious question of why haven't they done this sooner? Why did they put it with the bank to begin with in the city office? Why are they just waiting until now conveniently for the plot? We're not going to worry about that. I mean, there's a little bit of a loophole there, a little bit of plot hole. Like, why can't Morgan just go to the bank and just have a whole, like, stick him up and take the deed? But we're not going to ask these questions. We're just going to let the plot play out. It's fine. Maybe there's something we don't know about how this world runs. But I like the idea that Vash kind of looks at them, that they've cultivated this life. This is our lives and hopes are here. Right? And I do think that it is a nice social commentary about how different corporate groups like buy up farms. Like my family farms, we're from a small farm. And there is a lot of that going on where giant corporate farms will buy up the smaller ones and kind of monopolize them. And it's honestly in the US, it seems like it's harder and harder for a very small farm of like less than 100 acres to exist. So that is a definite real thing that was from the 90s and still is happening now, more so than ever. So it is something. Yeah. And so there is a social commentary there. I like it, of how these people are being threatened. And Meryl kind of, Meryl, he's like, once we get the deed over City Hall, he'll be stumped. And Meryl's just kind of concerned the whole time. And I feel like Meryl maybe relates to these people like her own parents. Maybe she relates to the situation. Maybe she just feels bad because they're kind of landlocked and they're just trying to like keep their hopes and dreams alive. Maybe they remind her of her own family. Like, I love the expressions of Meryl this season and this episode so far, especially this episode, because we're getting more with her. I kind of like these bodyguards they get placed with, right? These 3 bodyguards, like, they do say that, oh, it'll be nice to have 2 beautiful women with us tonight, but then they leave it at that, right? It's very wholesome. I'm like, okay, cool. Good for you, bodyguards. Good for you to just say the nice compliment and leave it at that. I was afraid the bodyguards were going to harass them, and they don't. I'm like, good on you, show. Way to be great. And then they're like, where's Broom Boy? We send him back to town. We sent him back to town. And so, yeah, I like that Vash the entire time just like hid out in the trash can. He couldn't stay back in town. As soon as they said send him back to town, I'm like, he's going to show back up in the episode. But surprisingly, he lets Meryl and them handle it for the most part by themselves. Now, the picture here, what's funny is it took me until the very end of the episode to realize it. But in the photo, there's the man, the woman, there's Badwick, and then at first I didn't realize what the woman was holding. She's holding Max. Max is the brother, and she's holding him as a baby. So Max was a younger brother that died. And I was waiting for the episode to explain Max's death and explain what happened, but it doesn't. It gives you what Badwick gives you in the conversation, which we'll get to, and that's it. The episode just is like, that's all you get. That's the only explanation you get. You piece it together yourselves, and it leaves it for the audience. But yeah, I didn't realize at first that Max was the little kid that he was talking about in the picture. And I'm amazed that Meryl could recognize Badwick from that cartoon crayon drawing. I was like, really, girl? That seems like a little bit of a stretch, but okay. Sure thing. And then Badwick. The thing about Badwick, one, I love that Millie, like, instantly is mad at him because, like, you don't fire a gun at your parents. Like, that's not cool. They're your family. And she's, like, got all family all the time, like, gung-ho, mad at him for attacking someone so close to him. But then we find out that Badwick, he's been trying to convince the family to give over the deed to try to protect them. and he got involved with Morgan's gang to try to keep them from going in and hurting the family. He's like, no. He's like, okay, guys, I'm going to get the family to give us the deed. Don't you worry. I'll be right back. And so he kind of, his sacrifice was trying to get with this gang so that they would give him the deed and he'd be able to like keep them safe. But it makes him look like a bad guy being with the gang. So I kind of like Badwick's character. I like what he ends up being. I like that he has a character arc in this. I like that the gang was just sitting back outside of the Oasis playing cards and drinking. And Morgan looks like a Pokemon character. He looks like with the vaudeville mustache and the hair, just the way he's drawn, it looks like something off of Pokemon. Then we get the Nebraska family, and the mom. I don't even want to think of the logistics. My mind was in the gutter for like the latter part of this episode being like, how does this work? I don't want to think about it too hard because I think my brain would start hurting and I'd be like, oh girl, why are you doing this? But the mom, she hits the car and stubs her toe on it. And she's just like, I like that the mom and the brother are like similar. I freaking love the Madonna style character design of the sister. Is it Martina? She looks like Madonna from the 80s. She has like the boob plate. She has the spiral curls, the black and red. I freaking love her design. Her character design is amazing. I love it. She's like, I want somebody to cosplay as her. Not me, because I cannot pull blonde hair off to save my life. I'm not meant to be a blonde. And she's like, no, he's like, I can appreciate the value of family. What a great episode to bring them in, though, because this whole episode's about family, right? About Millie's family, about Meryl's connection to her parents or lack thereof, about the father and son and mom, about losing Max, and then we have the Nebraska family coming, because this whole episode's about family. It's so cool. I freaking love it. And Morgan not appreciating the value of family, but saying it is. I'm like, man, sometimes those people and you're just like, there's a guy I grew up with and he was very attractive. He was a very handsome man. His parents were not. And so we always kind of joked and it was mean, but we were always just kind of like, and he was their biological son. We're like, how did this happen? Because his parents were not attractive people at all. I mean, no offense. I'm glad they loved each other and they had a great relationship, but they just weren't the stereotypical societal standards of beauty. But their son was very hot. And I was like, Like sometimes it just works out. The genetic lottery just matches up and gives you something good. This girl's the example of it. Her dad and mom are not the stereotypical, what we would consider to be attractive perhaps, but she's very beautiful. So I'm like, good for you, girl. Good for you. The steel-plated family bonds. I'm just like, what? I mean, I would, if I was the Nebraska dad, I'm sure I would find the mom attractive too. She's a buff, beautiful woman. I love Millie has her face against the window during all of this. Like it's going to make her hear better what's going on. I love it. And so then we have the family arguing. We cut to the family arguing with Badwick. They're like, the little band of vigilantes aren't going to save you. Morgan's going to kill you all. And they're like, well, Morgan's like a child. And Badwick's not disagreeing with it. But he's like, if Morgan gets a hold of the Oasis, it's going to dry up because he's not going to take care of it properly. Which is probably true. And Badwick is like, but Dad, he's like, you're going to die watching over this land. The land is a living thing. And then I like that Badwick's like, do you think the land is more important than your own life? And he's like, you're probably happy to keep sacrificing everything for this land. And that's when he says, damn you. Max was right to die rather than be raised by parents like you. So, and that's when he knows he said too much. And he's like, Like, it's like when you get mad at your family and sometimes you say something that you immediately are like, oh God, I shouldn't have said that. I've done that so many times. Like, you just get frustrated and mad and you say that one hurtful thing that you're like, oh, that was pushing it too far. I shouldn't have done that, but I did. And that's Badwick's moment. I think that's maybe why I relate a little bit to Badwick, because I'm like, I've been there. But not joining a gang that's threatening my family, But when you say that one thing that's just a little too harsh and a little too real, And so him saying Max was right to die rather than be raised by parents like you, indicating that Max died as a little kid. Like his brother died really young. And so he didn't get to grow up. He died really young. And he says Max was right to die rather than be raised, meaning that probably Max got sick and died, and that was it. Which goes along with the fact that the parents tried to cultivate the land and keep growing something, almost as if maybe they buried Max there. Maybe they believe Max is part of the land and part of the utopia. Maybe that's it, and Badwick's just frustrated by it. Whatever the case may be, he says too much, and then and Meryl and Millie are like, oh, like Meryl and Millie are like, shit, we shouldn't be here. And the family doesn't argue and say anything back, but Badwick realizes what he said was not good. And that's when the Nebraska family shows up, right? Oh my God. So yeah, so the Nebraska family shows up. There's all of these kids. The one kid that gets up and just immediately juggernauts away. That was so unintentionally funny. That was hilarious. I absolutely loved that. I was like, what the fudge is happening? And then, yes, the daughter, like, aiming where the siblings go, like she has her dad's, like, scientific prowess. And they're like, please don't hit the trees. I might need those. And she's like, oh my God, you're ruining my fun, old man. Do you know who you're talking to? She's like, Patricia, we are Patricia, Tonkichi, Chimpei, and Kanta. And all together, we are the Maryland, Nebraska, and Friends. So she's supposed to be Marilyn Monroe. Is that supposed to be it? Maryland, Nebraska, and Friends. Oh my God. So is Patricia the mom? Oh my God. I love all of the siblings. I cannot. And she does like the Ringoku laugh or Rinka laugh from Ouran High School. The ha 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 ha. The Renga laugh. I'm like, oh my God, she's amazing. The evil girly laugh. And she's like, oh, Mom, Patricia. Patricia's such a mom name. I like that she names the group after her, the Maryland, Nebraska, and Friends. I'm like, I cannot. Absolutely cannot. I love her. She's like Chimpei, Kanta, Kanichi. Oh my God. It's absolutely amazing. I love the one guy goes, this is nuts. Let's get out of here. I don't blame him at this point because the gang shows up and the parents are like, you know what? We're going to go out with pots and pans on our heads with our guns and just defend our land from this guy and his goons, right? And they say that they're like, well, he's not going to kill us because he doesn't know where the deed is, right? He doesn't know where the deed is, so he's not going to kill us. It's going to be fine. The three brothers all look the same, or I wonder if they're triplets. It's just, I love that there's like Marilyn's normal human size. The three triplet brothers are like similar but bigger, and then the one brother's huge. Like how this works, you explain to me. I mean, sure. The funny thing is, we should have known whenever they said Nebraska family back in episode 5, there was more than just the dad and the son. But who could have known? Who could have known? Who could have known it was coming, right? Oh my God. And so then, yeah, I like that Badwick's like, why is my dad doing this? This is really dumb. And I love the mom bops him with the ladle. And she's like, because your father loves you. Like, just because you're an idiot and just because you do stupid things doesn't mean your dad doesn't care about you. And that just warmed my heart. This episode was so heartwarming. I love it. And Badwick's just like, okay. I freaking love when the dad shoots the check out of Morgan's hands. I'm like, that takes some pretty good aim to shoot a check out of someone's hand and not have any, like, gun matter or anything hit him. And so then Millie steps in, Millie's like, didn't your father ever tell you not to take things that don't belong to you? Again, the idea of family is just the centerfold of this episode. And she threatens to use her Gatling against him. And then Meryl steps in being like, Millie, it's good that you react quickly to anger I think it's good. She's not saying it's good that Millie reacts quickly to anger, but that Millie has very strict principles and she acts upon them instantly. She doesn't wait around and hesitate like Meryl does. She's like, I wish I could be like you. I hesitate and overthink things all the time. You just are like, no, this is what needs to be done. This is justice. And you go and do it. She's like, I wish I could be like you. And that's kind of how Vash is too. I feel like Wolfwood, we talk about the square of characters. I feel like Wolfwood and Meryl are a little similar in that they overthink things sometimes from what we've seen of them. And then Millie and Vash are similar in that they're just like, no, this is the right thing to do. Let's just do it. And they don't really think of the consequences or anything else that's involved. Now, I think Vash thinks a little bit more than Millie, obviously, but he's been around the block more than her. And then Meryl comes in with the little Derringers, and she's just like, think longer before you act, Millie, but it's okay. And then we see Badwick looking at the photo and realizing the deed is behind the photograph. Now, the only part of the episode that I don't quite understand is why Millie has like the sparkly like anime eyes when Meryl's like holding them at gunpoint. There's one shot where Millie has like sparkling eyes, and it almost made me feel like there was something cut from the episode, like there was a sequence cut. I don't know what it was, but I'm trying to figure out like why did she have those eyes? Because we see Badwick, like he goes behind the photo frame, takes the deed and runs off with it. The mom can't stop, and they're like, freeze. And when they say freeze and Meryl has him at gunpoint, Millie's behind her with the sparkly eyes. So I don't know why that is, what the reason for it. It almost, like I said, feels like something was cut from the episode, but I don't know what the deal was. She's like, why did it turn out like this? If you'd taken the money and sold the land, there would be no hostages. No one would have to die. So then we have the idea that Meryl's saying, if you just did the easy thing, people wouldn't have to die. But I feel like Meryl is slowly realizing the dilemma that Vash runs into, in that people aren't like that. The easy way is not always the best way or the right way. And people get investments with things and they don't want to give them up. And Meryl is realizing, okay, yeah, maybe I'm starting to see why Vash thinks the way that he does and why he interferes. Meryl interfering with this entire incident is exactly something Vash would do. And I'm hoping that Meryl realizes kind of a little bit more about Vash from this experience. And maybe she puts two and two together, because sometimes it takes Meryl a little bit of time, but she ends up doing it, right? So I'm hoping that that's the case, because it definitely is a similarity. And again, Meryl doesn't pull the trigger. She does a very similar thing that Vash does in episode 5, where she doesn't pull the trigger and she keeps other people from pulling the trigger. That's the big thing, is that there's a lot of people with guns in this one scene, that it could be a bloodbath, but Meryl's cool thinking and acting like Vash would in this situation, it keeps everybody from killing each other. And that's so good, right? I feel like that's why Vash doesn't get involved, because he sees that Meryl is acting like him. And so Badwick takes off with the deed to like get them to follow him and leave the family alone. They throw one of the Nebraska members there, and I love that Meryl says, my shot's not gonna make it, but I gotta try. And that's when Vash steps in being like, good girl, Millie, good girl, Meryl, good job. And then he's been sticking out of the trash can, and Meryl's kind of like, I did it, really? And Vash is just like, okay. He's like, that makes us even for your help in the sand steamer. Yeah, so I like that Vash was like, he doesn't want to admit he was helping her, but he's like, okay, now we're even. Now I got you back, girl. We're all on equal footing now. And then I love the fourth wall breaking, where he's just like, wait, that's all the time I get? Like, he's like, I just get 5 seconds in this episode? So funny. So funny. But Millie's like, she said she warned you. And Morgan's like, that tiny gun's not going to do. But I like that it fools the Nebraska family, because they're so overdramatic and ridiculous. And she's like, our super cool technique was supposed to be invincible, and it's been destroyed by her. And then they just basically take off. I absolutely love the Nebraska family. They are so ridiculous. The mom literally lands on top of Morgan. Ridiculous. Like, it's so funny. And then they end up leaving, and the family gets to keep the land. Yep. And then the best part of the episode is the dad. I love that they thank Meryl and Millie, this coming from an old man who raised an idiot son. Everyone feels differently. How you feel about your parents can't be compared with how others feel about theirs. Exactly. Everybody's family is different. You can't compare the two. And then I love Meryl kind of realizes, like, I think Meryl felt kind of bad at the beginning that she wasn't writing her family, But, you know, some families are a lot more touchy-feely, lovey-dovey than others. Some families get all emotional and they write each other all the time. And that doesn't mean that those that don't are any less close. And I think Meryl needed this experience to be like, okay, what I'm doing is fine. Millie does her thing, I do my thing. Our families are different, and that's okay. But my favorite part is him going to the bank, the city office, dropping off the letter, and then they're like, hey, wait a minute. They're like, just so you know, there's more than one claim transfer in the envelope. Are you Badwick, the beneficiary, as written here? Meaning, like his eyes go sparkly, meaning that his family trusted him and they left him as owner of the land too. They want him to get the land if something happens to them. That they trust him. It's so sweet, right? So sweet, so cute, so sweet. I absolutely loved it. And then we finish up the episode with them chasing after the bus that Vash is on. She goes and she drops the letter, like the claim, to the insurance company. Or she writes a letter to her family. That's what she did. Yes. At first I thought she was writing a report of the incident. But no, it was a letter to her family that she wrote. Oh, so heartwarming. So good. And then yeah, they got to get on the bus with Vash. If I do ever cosplay as anyone from Trigun, I would love to be Meryl and have the pink suitcase. It'd be so cute. Or Millie. I could cosplay as Millie too. I'm a little bit taller, so I could do Millie. But yeah. So cute! I love it to pieces. These 2 episodes were so good, and I'm so excited now for the second half. We've got a little bit more on Vash. I like that they did the joke of being like, well, that's your boyfriend, right? And Meryl's like, he's not my boyfriend. And Millie's like, is he not your boyfriend? Like, you guys could be boyfriend and girlfriend. I'm shipping it now. I'm hardcore. I'm rooting for it. I mean, I like Vash and Wolfwood, but I am rooting for Meryl and Vash 100%. But now what do we do? So we're on the bus again. We're journeying somewhere. Are we going after Legato? Are we going after the person above him? Are we gonna meet Wolfwood again? Like, what are we going to do? Where are we going to now? That is the question. That is one nice thing about these episodes. You just don't know where they're going or what's gonna happen, but it's really exciting. So I hope you all enjoyed this reaction and discussion. I had to do 2 episodes at once, so probably won't happen again, but because I don't think they're going to do another recap anytime soon, but just, it was nice to do these both together. So in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Trigun. Bye!